Res.
A great day to one and all. Welcome to the September 2023 licensure examination for teachers or LET review for math majors. For tonight, we will be discussing another set of 40 items. So the first set is from items 161 to 180, and the second set of 20 items is from 181 until 200. I hope that our answer sheets are ready. I hope you are ready also with a PDF copy of the file that was sent to you last time. And again, since we will be discussing another set of 40 items, let us target to get at least one half of the total number of items. That is, we are hoping that you would get at least 20 out of the 40 items. So without much further ado, be reminded of that you are going to shade, for the instructions, you are going to shade the letter of your correct answers, either from A, B, C, or D. However, if the correct answer is not found among the choices, then you are supposed to shade E in the answer sheets. All right, let's proceed to item number 161. This refers to the knowledge, skills, behaviors, and dispositions that students need in order to use mathematics in a wide range of situations. Does it mean numeracy, literacy, constructivism, or manipulatives? Okay, kindly comment your answer. And so far, to those who commented, your answer so far is letter A. And if you answered letter A, which is numeracy, then you are actually correct. So when we speak about numeracy, it's not only learning how to do a mathematical operation. It's also how one could utilize mathematical knowledge in real life situations for one to be considered numerate. It is also important that he or she is able to create good or sound decisions through the proper utilization of mathematical facts, principles, and processes. That's why if you answered letter A, congratulations, you got it right. All right, I hope you have a great start. Let's proceed to 162. Mr. Zamora would like to teach his learners about quadratic functions using GeoGebra software. What concept do you think is he teaching based on the image? Is he talking about horizontal shift, vertical shift, both A and B? Or letter D, neither A nor B? All right. So far, according to Sir Chad, Ma'am Mary Kate, Ma'am Ayesa, Ma'am Nurse Usman, they answered letter A, which is horizontal shift. And if you answered horizontal shift, you should be happy, no? Dahil tama po yan. If you could see po, no? Halimbawa, if we pegged our original function as this one, the green one, then you see it's the same. This is the same graph. The red one has the same shape and size as this green graph. It's just that it was shifted, or parang yung figure na to, yung green graph ay parang na-move lang siya ng ilang units, so particularly 3 units going to the left. Samantalang this blue graph, it's the same as the graph of the green parabola, but was shifted 3 units to the right. So in this case, Mr. Zamora is talking about horizontal shift. And when we say horizontal shift, it's either going left or right. Kapag sinabi po nating vertical shift, yan naman po ay ang either going up or going down. Okay? And we will learn more about that next time po. Letter A. 163. This involves a continuum of learning in enabling individuals to achieve their goals, to develop their knowledge and potential, and to participate fully in their community and wider society. Is this numeracy? Is this literacy, constructivism, or manipulatives? All right, so far, so good. Of all who commented, they answered letter B, which is literacy. Now, okay, B po, yung so far yung nag-comment lahat. And when we speak about literacy, it actually involves a continuum of learning and in enabling individuals to achieve their goals. So, and you might be confused. So, anong pinagkaiba ng numeracy sa literacy? So, normally, tandaan po natin, numeracy is just a type of literacy. Literacy is a bigger set or a bigger picture, samantalang yung numeracy natin ay subset lamang o bahagi ng tinatawag nating literacy. No? Dati kasi kapag sinasabi nating literacy, okay, marunong ko magbasa, marunong ko magsulat, but if you are also numerate, then you are also, I mean, in this case, no, numeracy is also a portion or a big chunk, no, of literacy natin. So this time, you are actually literate if you can use what you have learned, no, that enabled you to achieve your goals sa life mo, at saka yung develop mo yung knowledge mo and potential, and upang magamit mo ito, upang maging, for you to participate fully, no, in their community and wider society. Also, when we speak about literacy, it's also being able to use one's faculty to make wise decisions. And in real life situations as well. So letter B po, literacy ang tamang sagot. All right. Let's have number 4. May sumagot na ata ng letter B. One wants to measure angles. The following tools may be used. Exam. A, protractor. B, sextant. C, compass. Or D, thermometer. Okay, so for 164, okay, many answered D. And I think the answer here is pretty obvious because we know that thermometer is actually used to measure temperature. So letter D po. No. And we have here some measuring devices. So we have your compass. You are very much familiar with this. Your protractor is also very familiar to you. Usually, no, instruments like sextant, like this one, could be used by ships, especially if they are on the sea, no, in measuring the angles, especially of places that are, say, if there are two places, then they would like to measure the angle from at a certain point or base kung nasaan yung barko nila. So they are actually using sextant. Okay. Sextant daw pang measure ng ano. Grabe ko naman Alam ko yung iniisip mo, kidding aside. So letter D po, because thermometer is used to measure temperature. All right. 165. To understand the surface area of a certain space figure, Sir Ian showed the following net. What particular space figure will it form? Is it cone, pyramid, sphere, or cylinder? Okay. So many would say cone, no? When we speak about net po, it's a two-dimensional figure, no? Na kapag na-fold natin o in-arrange natin in a certain way, pwede po siyang makakreate ng isang three-dimensional or space figure. And if you answered cone, you are actually correct in saying that. Kasi if you will fold this sector here, it will form, say, this one. And the circle here serves as the base of your cone. So letter A po yung ating tamang sagot. All right. 166. Teacher Sandy has prepared a cone and a cylinder with identical circular bases and height. She tasked one student to fill the cone with water and to pour the water to the cylinder. The process was done 3 times in all. This will help the child know that the volume of the cylinder is blank, the volume of the cone. Okay, let's see. Saglit lang po. Okay, letter C daw, thrice. Is the volume of the cylinder thrice the volume of the cone? And if you have this one, no? So since ginamit natin yung cone at pinuno ito ng tubig, and since 3 beses mo siyang dapat lagyan ng tubig yung cone upang mapuno yung cylinder, then I agree with you, no? We could say that the volume of the cylinder is thrice or 3 times the volume of the cone. It is a good experiment in mathematics in such a way that if one knows the volume of the cylinder, then the learner can inductively derive the volume of the cone. Yeah. So since 3 times mong kailangang punuin yung cone ng tubig at ilagay sa cylinder, it follows therefore that the volume of the cylinder is 3 times the volume of the cone, or the volume of the cone is 1/3 the volume of the cylinder, provided that they have the same perpendicular height and the radius of the circular base. Letter C. Galing. Mukhang marami makaka-perfect ngayon, ah. Okay. 167. What should be done when most of the students, say 90% of them, got high scores? Will you provide remediation, proceed to the new objective, provide more drill exercises, or let students ponder more on the lesson? Sige, tingnan po natin. So this one is more of decision making, no? And according to Ma'am Nurse, to Ma'am Ayesa, they will go with B, proceed to new objective. Same with Ma'am Jessa. And if you answered letter B, I agree with you as well. So 90%, I believe, is a good indication that majority of your learners understood really the lessons. So it would be better to proceed to a new objective. And to those, probably you could provide some additional remediation or drill exercises for them to catch up. So letter B po. All right, so far so good. 168. The statement of your 3 students are the following. Student A, all squares are rectangles. B, all rectangles are squares. C, all rhombuses are squares. Who among them is or are telling the truth? Is it A and B and C, or all of them, A, B, and C? All right. So far, A yung sagot ng karamihan sa atin na nag-comment po dito. Now, let's evaluate po, no? If you answered A, all squares are rectangles, A is actually correct. All rectangles are squares. This statement is actually incorrect. Bakit po? Some rectangles are squares, but not all rectangles are squares. Because kapag sinabi po nating a square, all 4 angles are right angles and all 4 sides are equal. So all squares are rectangles because the fact na kung anong property na rectangle meron sa square. Pero be careful po dahil hindi lahat ng rectangle ay merong property ng square. So B is wrong. Tama po, no? From bottom to top daw, sabi ni Giganto. Okay? And C is also wrong. Tandaan po natin, all rhombuses are squares is wrong. All squares are rhombuses and rectangles. But the other way around is not true. So among all of them, only student A is telling the truth. All right, so far, so good. 169. in one of your items, majority of the students answered -2 times -3 as 6. What could this mean in the context of assessment? Is it A, majority of the learners understand the lesson, B, majority of them did not understand the lesson, C, majority cheated in the exam, or D, none of the above? We could not say majority cheated in the exam because the context does not say so. So we could choose either from A or B, I believe. And -2 times -3 is equal to +6 is actually true, knowing that the product of two negative numbers is positive. Hence, this may imply on the part of the educator that majority of the learners understand the lesson, considering that majority of them got the item right. Letter A. Okay, good job. 170. Socialization is integral even in mathematics classrooms. The following can boost socialization in the classroom except A, brainstorming. If you answered, does brainstorming boost classroom socialization? And that is actually correct. Because usually in brainstorming, the learners or everyone, including the teacher, is actively involved in the process. And the learners also are talking with one another, and they're talking out loud about their ideas. And they are also vocal about it. Group work is also boost socialization, because in group work, you are expected to work and communicate with others. For think, pair, share, you also work with a partner. So I believe this is also boost socialization, because when we say socialization, or in this case po kasi, we can consider socialization if there is at least two people who work on a certain task, and individual work does not. So we'll go with letter D. Okay, letter D po ito. Saglit lang po. If you answered letter D for 170, then that is correct. Salamat po. 171. You would like to place your learners in appropriate learning groups. What type of assessment should you give? Placement, summative, diagnostic, or attitudinal? All right. So this one, it's the impact already of assessment that would guide us in our instruction. Okay, many answered A. When we say placement test, it is done prior to instruction. This is done to determine the needs of the learners. It determines also their prior knowledge, and you use this as starting point for instruction. And it is used to place students in specific learning groups to facilitate teaching and learning. Like you place them in, let's say, fast learners group. Are they in a group of average, or are they in a group of slow learners, for example? So that's the purpose of placement test. Yung diagnostic naman po is usually done before and during instruction. That is to determine students' recurring or persistent difficulties, to search for students' learning problems that do not respond to first aid treatment, and to help formulate a plan for detailed remedial instruction. Okay, so I believe, because may concept po kasi tayo na yung iba, diagnostic before lang yan ng instruction. Hindi po. Diagnostic test could also be done during instruction to check kung may mga learning difficulties nga ba yung mga students natin. Summative tests are done after instruction, and this is to certify what students know and can do, and the level of their proficiency or competency. And it is used to reveal the results of assessment, whether or not instructions have successfully achieved the curriculum outcomes. So examples of your summative tests would include, say, quarter tests, long tests, periodical tests. If you would like to determine the prior knowledge of your learners, then it would be best if one, saglit lang po So if you answered letter A, be happy. Correct po. Thank you. Placement. 172. If students do not learn the way we teach, then it is good to teach the way they learn. Which could be done that relates to this belief? Is it A, the use of a learning style inventory? B, the use of traditional approaches? C, the use of diagnostic tests? Or D, the use of multimedia? Wow. Medyo marami-rami ata yung sumagot ng A. And if you answered A, correct. When we speak about learning style inventories are designed to help respondents determine in which learning style they have. These inventories typically take the form of a questionnaire that focuses on how people prefer to learn. Respondents choose the answers that most closely resemble their own preferences. Kasi meron po tayong iba't ibang learning styles, no? At saka meron po tayong iba't ibang uri ng intelligences, sabi nga ni Gardner. Some of our learners are more of visual. Some of them are mahilig sa music, no? Are musical or auditory. Some verbal. So they prefer to use words both in speech and in writing. Also, yung iba naman mahilig gumalaw, no? So, like yung mga physical kinesthetic po natin. Some are also logical or mathematical. Some are social. They would like to work with others. So others prefer solitary. So probably it would be better sometimes, no, if we know their style of learning. So, and we could hopefully adapt our style with the way they prefer to learn. So letter A po ang best answer dito. All right. Thank you po. All right. Proceed po tayo sa 173. Mr. Dino would like to determine if learning took place by giving a long test. What assessment did he give? Did he give placement test, summative test, diagnostic test, or formative test? Long test. Letter B daw, summative. And if you answered summative test, you are actually correct again. So usually, no, gaya nga ng sinabi natin kanina, the purpose of summative test is to determine learning based on the content that was covered. So long test is an example of a summative test. Letter B. 174. Yes, parang Prof. Ed po. Ito po yung pinagkaiba ng bagong TOS sa old TOS. Kasi ngayon sa bagong TOS natin, parang meron na siyang Prof. Ed na component, no? So that's why apart from the Prof. Ed that you will be having, if you have great background or knowledge sa Prof. Ed ninyo na part, so most likely I believe you will also perform well sa part na to. Pero this time, related na siya more sa mathematics teaching din po, in particular. 174. Mr. Amanar would like to know if his grade 10 learners are capable of judging other people's solutions, if they are correct or not, and to explain why, bakit tama o mali yung classmates niya, for example. This falls in what cognitive domain? Is it remembering, analyzing, evaluating, or creating? Okay, many answered letter C, and if you answered C, you got it right. When we say remembering po kasi, remembering refers to knowing certain facts, the what, who, where, no? The basic. So it's more of recall. Yung creating naman po, when we speak about creating, from parts, you will form a whole. And analyzing naman po is you are using your knowledge, your comprehension to determine or to, let's say, to analyze or analyze the whole by means of its parts. So letter C po, yung sagot dito. All right. Oh, galing ah. Kasi meron tayong 6 no, na domains ngayon. Yung kay Bloom's, yung revised niya, 6 din yan. So yung remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating po. 175. The following are student-related factors why some learners are non-numerates exempt. Is it A, social emotional difficulties, B, delayed acquisition of language, C, chronic absenteeism, or D, low socio-economic status? Okay, pakisagot po. Pakilagay po ang sagot natin. Ano po kaya sa palagay niyo? Okay. If you answered letter D, you are actually correct. Low socioeconomic status is a social and or environmental factor po, while the rest are student-related factors. Tandaan po natin yan. Letter D. So yun po, no? So when we speak about socioeconomic status, probably it could include the family income and that social and or environmental factor na po. 176. It is defined as feelings of tension that interfere with the manipulation of numbers and the solving of mathematical problems. Is it mathematics anxiety, problems, habits, or gap? All right. I believe many people probably find this one easy. Our clue here, tension, feeling of tension. And when we speak about tension, it's more of mathematical anxiety. It is defined as feelings of tension and anxiety that interfere with the manipulation of numbers and the solving of mathematical problems. Mathematical anxiety can cause one to forget and lose one's self-confidence. Kaya nga po, no, minsan kasi, kapag even nag-review yung bata, na-master niya na. Pero pagdating ng test, for example, kapag inatake siya ng anxiety, so parang nakalimutan niya na lahat yung kanyang pinag-aralan, na may mental block po siya. I hope na hindi po ito mangyari sa atin, especially during the exam po. Okay? Now, let's proceed to 177. For better understanding of mathematics concepts, which of the following steps should a teacher follow in teaching? Saan kaya? Meron tayong concrete, abstract, pictorial. So saan kaya yung correct sequence dito? Okay? Marami sa inyo sumagot ng concrete, pictorial, or abstracts. And sabi ni Sir Chad, Brunner's 3-tier system. And if you answer that, I do agree with you as well. When we say concrete, no, ito po yung use of physical objects or manipulatives. In the concrete part na you are actually working with concrete or physical models, no, na pwedeng magalaw ng bata, na pwede niyang hawakan at ma-manipulate. Yung pictorial naman po is kapag gumagamit na po tayo ng drawings, no, in behalf of concrete objects. At saka yung abstract naman po ay kapag one is using symbols, no? Halimbawa, like yung numbers together with all the mathematical symbols like plus, minus, times, divide. So normally it would be best if one is learning from concrete until such time na makakaya niya na ang abstract. So start from concrete to abstract whenever possible. Letter B. And I do agree again with Sir Chad, no? Sa iba, yung ginagamit nilang terms ay, baliktad po sir, be careful po, inactive po. Yung concrete, yan po yung tinatawag nating inactive. Yung pictorial, yan po yung iconic. At saka yung abstract, yan po yung symbolic. So, EIS, inactive, iconic, symbolic. Thank you po. 178. No problem po. Which of the following is the largest factor if a student will learn or not? Palagay nyo po. Saan dito? Enthusiasm, ng teacher, learner's socio-economic status, learner's motivation, or the learning environment? Ang pinakamalaking factor ay yung learner's motivation. Remember, the learner's willingness to learn is a big factor for his learning. Although all of the other factors are also very important or could affect the child, but motivation itself is I believe, is the largest factor among all of them. Because no matter how well one has, for example, no matter how good the teacher in teaching is, no matter how yaman ng bata, no matter how conducive the learning is, pero kapag yung bata walang motibasyon upang matuto, nako, malaking problema po yan. So letter C. 179. In an exam, the teacher noted that the mode of the class is equal to the mean. The distribution of the scores is most likely A, negatively skewed, B, positively skewed, C, asymmetrical, or D, normal. And I could see a lot of these. Di wow. And I agree with you as well. Let me explain po bakit normal. Tandaan po natin, in a symmetrical distribution such as your normal curve, all the three measures of central tendency are equal. That is, the mean, median, and mode are all equal and all are found at the center of your distribution. When we say positively skewed data po, it means in this set of data, no, the mode is the lowest, followed by the median, and the mean is the highest. So in a positively skewed distribution, it is understood that majority of the scores or of the number values there are low and only few are high scores. Samantalang, if you have a negatively skewed distribution, the mean is the lowest value, followed by the median, and the largest is the mode. And tandaan po natin, in a negatively skewed distribution, most of the scores are on the positive side. No? It tells us that many of the scores are high, or the values here are high, and only few of the scores are low. That's why, in this case, since the mean is equal to your mode, then it's describing more of the normal or symmetrical distribution in this case. So we will go with letter D. 180. Mrs. Moreno noted that the pre-test scores and post-test scores of learners in conic sections topic, supposing the assumptions on the use of parametric tests are satisfied, what test should she use to determine if there's a significant difference between pre-test and post-test scores? Is it A, one-way ANOVA or ANOVA? Did you go for Pearson's R, paired samples t-test, or D, independent samples t-test? So dito, research na po tayo. Okay, letter C. Tingnan po natin kung tama si letter C. One-way ANOVA po, no, is usually used to determine if there are significant differences in the means of two or more groups. Baka marami po sa atin nagsasabi, sir, di ba yung ANOVA dapat 3 or more? Tama din naman po yan. Pero remember po natin ha, in reality, kaya po ng ANOVA 2 or more. Pero kadalasan gamit natin siya kapag 3 or more. Pero pwede din po siyang 2. Yung Pearson's R po, it's actually about the relationship, no, ng dalawang paired variables. Halimbawa po, may relationship ba yung height ng tao sa kanyang weight? So it's not about differences, but Pearson's R measures, or it's for determining if there's a significant relationship between two sets of paired data. Paired samples t-test, if there's differences of two related samples. So when we speak about two related samples, halimbawa po, no, kumuha ka ng dalawang sets of data mula sa iisang tao, bawat respondent mo, kumuha ka ng test, dalawang sets ng data, dalawang data. Halimbawa, yung pre-test at saka post-test. Or let's say, gusto mong malaman, effective ba yung diet ng isang tao, ng mga respondents mo. So, kinuha mo yung weight niya before, tapos after yung intervention mo, kinuha mo yung weight niya after, at i-compare mo kung meron nga bang significant difference yung weight before and after the intervention. That since your data are paired, then paired samples t-test po yung ginagamit natin. And that's actually the correct answer here. No? Other books or other sources call it t-test for paired samples or dependent samples t-test. And lastly naman po, yung independent samples t-test, if you would like to determine if there are differences between exactly two groups. No? If there are significant differences in the means of the two groups. So letter C po yung tamang sagot natin. Okay. So that ends the 161 to 180. Thank you very much. And we will proceed with the next set of 20 items. Okay. At this juncture, we will now discuss items 181 to 200. All right. 181. Why is research important in mathematics education? Which do you think here is the best? It gives teachers the funding. It helps improve the quality of education. It gives teachers more work. Or D, it paves way for more experimentation in the classroom. Let's all remember, mga kaguro, that the main purpose, I believe that the main purpose of research is to improve the quality of life. And in education, research is important to help improve the quality of education. So if you answered B, tama po yan. Ito po yung best answer dito. Wow. I think sa lahat ng sumagot ng B, I think pasado na po kayo sa board exam. Yes. Okay. Let's claim it. 182. A teacher is interested to know why a certain learner is always late in coming to school and hence had low math scores. Yes, manifesting po. What data gathering method is the best thing to use? Will you go for questionnaire, observation, interview, or experimentation? Take note po ha, gusto mo pong malaman yung reason, no? Kung bakit palagi siyang late. And if you go for interview, I agree with you as well. In interview, the teacher acts as an interviewer, so she asks questions and the child has to answer or provide answers based on the questions. No? In using questionnaire, I think this is not applicable. It's not the best thing to use. No? Observation, it's not. Because observation, you just observe, you're just looking at him or watching him, but you need responses. So interview is the best thing here. All right. Letter C. 183. Mr. Henyo would like to gather primary data. Which of the following is an example of primary data? Did you go for results of one's interview, encyclopedias, information in books, or data in the internet? Wow. Many answered letter A, which is the results of one's interview. If you answered such, you are actually correct. When we speak about primary data, it is first-hand information. It is the data or the type of data that the researcher collected himself or herself
And primary data are not published in books or in various newspapers or magazines. In fact, B, C, and D are examples of what we call secondary data. So when we speak about secondary data, these data are published. It could be published or unpublished. It probably it could be data that were gathered by other researchers. And also, for example, information found in books, encyclopedias, magazines, research journals are examples of secondary data. (184) The following are considered secondary data except, okay, I agree with you, no? If you answered autobiographies, then that is correct. Encyclopedia, journals, and magazines are sources of secondary data. Autobiographies are done by the person himself. So the data found in one's autobiography is an example of primary data. Letter D. 185. This is a controlled study in which the researcher attempts to understand cause and effect relationships. Did you go for survey, experimentation, causal comparative, or descriptive? All right. May sumagot ng B, experimentation. May sumagot ng C, which is causal comparative. Okay. Actually, the correct answer here is experimentation. Take note po ha, sabi dito, controlled study. So there are independent and dependent variables. Independent variables are variables that could be controlled by the researcher. And the fact that there's control group and to say experimental group, you are going to do what we call experiments. Yung survey naman po halimbawa, no, yung nagbibigay ka ng questionnaire, and if you are interested to determine the levels, like what's the level of numeracy of the learners or at what extent, no, parang ganon yung mga studies. Yung causal comparatives naman po, it's either you are going to understand the cause or you are going to explore the effect, halimbawa. Yung descriptive naman po, similar po siya sa letter D, no? Yung sa iba, sa mga thesis nila, gumagamit sila ng survey method. Yung iba naman, descriptive method. Others, some institutions peg them to be the same or equal. Letter B po, experimentation. 186. A teacher noted that most scores are higher than the median. Which of the following is most likely true? I think. Did most of them pass? Did most of them fail? Got below average scores or got above average scores? What is the best answer here? Okay, many answered D. If you answered D, you are actually correct. Just like the explanation po kanina, no? If most of the scores are higher, meaning the mode, or I mean, it's higher than your median, it's implying here that the mode is most likely higher than the median. And that is true for negatively skewed data. And in a negatively skewed distribution, many got above average scores. Letter D. Okay, sa lahat ng sumagot ng D, di wow, correct. Grabe kayo. Mukhang marami yata makaka-perfect mamaya. 187. Mr. Sales would like to determine the relative sizes of males with respect to the whole. Which of the following graphs is best to use? So sinasabi, when we say relative size, no, parang Saan yung mas marami? Like, yung lalaki, i-compare sa kabuuan. So, mabuti bang gamitin yung pie graph, bar graph, line graph, or pictograph or pictures? Okay. If you answer, take note po natin, if you answered pie graph, then you are actually correct. Because it is the intention ng pie graph na i-compare yung size ng isang bahagi in relation to the whole or in relation also to the other parts. Yung bar graph naman po, usually, it's good to display frequencies. Halimbawa, if you are more of the trend at a certain moment, a certain time series, it would be good to use line graph. So tama nga naman po, no? We will go with letter A. I hope na nakuha po natin yung explanation. Yes, yung sizes of males po natin. Okay, thank you po. 188. Mr. Marquez would like to determine the score that appears the most number of times. Which of the following is he trying to get? The mean, median, mode, or the range? All right. If you answered mode, you are again correct. Because take note, no? If you have data, be it quantitative or qualitative, if you are after only of that score, or say datum that appears the most number of times, then you are only after of the mode. Letter C. I believe you are familiar with the mean, no? It's the arithmetic average. So you add everything and divide by the total number of scores. And usually you could take the mean of a data set if it's either interval or ratio data. Yung median naman po ay ginagamit natin, no, to separate or to divide the data set into two equal parts, the bottom 50% and the upper 50%. When we speak about the range, if we have numerical data, it is the difference of the highest score and the lowest score. So letter C, mode. 189. The final grades in mathematics from first to fourth quarters of two top students are as follows. So yung kay student A, 90, 90, 90. Yung kay student B naman ay 88, 90, 92, 90. If you could do this one, no, you could actually verify that the mean grades in math ni student A ay 90 at saka yung mean ng math grades ni student B is also 90. Since they have the same mean, the teacher decided to determine who is more consistent between the two. So what measure should he or she solve for? Did you go for the mean, standard deviation, kurtosis, or skewness? Very good. If you answered B, standard deviation, you are actually correct. If we wanted to measure consistency, we need to we could actually solve for measures of variability. And some of them, we have range, average deviation or mean deviation, the standard deviation, and the variance. Since standard deviation is one of the choices, so we will go with B. Magaling, magaling, magaling. 190. Mrs. Camariosa would like to determine who among the four sections, diamond, amethyst, sapphire, and emerald, have the highest scores in mathematics. Which of the following parametric tools would best serve its purpose? One-way ANOVA, Pearson's R, paired samples t-test, or independent samples t-test. Since we are after of differences, then B, Pearson's R is out. Since we have 4 groups, 4 independent groups, the 4 sections, then we have to go with letter A, one-way ANOVA. Because one-way ANOVA will be able to help us determine what pairs of differences are equal. You could use this if you have 2 or more groups. Normally, ginagamit po natin yung independent samples t-test if we have 2 independent groups. But don't worry, if you use one-way ANOVA for 2 groups or more, the better. It's okay. Pero out of respect na lang for independent samples t-test, gagamitin natin siya kung 2 grupo lang, 2 independent groups. But if you have 3 or more, we use the one-way ANOVA there. So letter A. So kung nag-research po kayo dati or nag-pursue ng quantitative research, I believe may idea po tayo nito. 191. Group A's test results has a standard deviation of 3.5, while Group B's test results has a standard deviation of 7.3 in a certain test. What can be said of the 2 groups? Is it A? Group A is more heterogeneous than Group B. B. Group B is more homogeneous than Group A. C. Scores of those in A are somewhat nearer than those in Group B, or D, all of the above. Tandaan po natin, standard deviation or measures of variability can never be negative. No, it ranges from 0. The smallest value is 0, or it could be positive. But the value of measures of variability can never be negative. At ganito po tayo mag-interpret. If the value that you get is closer to 0, o maliit yung kapag mas maliit yung nakuha mong value, it means to say that the scores that you get are more consistent, more homogeneous, and that the scores are somehow nearer to each other compared to the other group. Also, if the standard deviation that you will get is higher than that of the other group, ibig sabihin po niyan, yung data set mo ay more heterogeneous probably. Most of the yung mga scores, medyo malayo yung distances ng scores ng group na yan compared sa kabilang grupo. O it's less consistent. The closer to 0, the more consistent or the less variable, there's less variability. The greater the value, the more variability sa scores, o malayo po yung distances nila perhaps. That's why if you go for A, mali po ito. Kasi mas maliit yung standard deviation ni A, so mas homogeneous si A compared kay B. Group B is also wrong because since mas mataas yung standard deviations ng score ni B, so Group B is more heterogeneous than Group A. If you answered C, scores of those in A are somewhat nearer than those in Groups B, tama po ito. Kasi nga, mas maliit yung standard deviation ni A kaysa kay B. So yung tamang sagot po ay letter C. 192. I hope na nakuha po natin. Naintindihan po natin? Okay, salamat po. 192. Teacher Ayan would like to track the progress, the test results in percent of his learners from June to December. He plans to use a pie chart for such purpose. Is this sound? A, yes, because it is related to his goal. B, yes, because that's the purpose of the pie chart. C, no, because pie charts does not serve his purpose.
Or D? No, because pie chart is a simple chart. Okay. Again, many answered C, and if you answered C, tama po kayo. Gaya po ng sinabi natin kanina, no, the purpose of the pie chart is to compare, no, yung isang group in with respect to the other group or groups, or in relation to the whole. And you are after of the trend here. So what's the most appropriate type of graph here, I believe, is a line graph. No? Pwede rin sigurong bar graph, but pie graph is not about trend. It's about comparison. So letter C po, no, because the pie chart does not serve his purpose. 193. Technology use is important in mathematics, teaching and learning. Which one does not support this idea? A, it saves time. B, it makes one dull and unimaginative. C, it makes lessons more understandable. Or D, it makes difficult topics easier to visualize and understand. So, I agree with letter B again. Kasi nga, gaya nga dito, no? Sorry. For this one po kasi, the problem is asking more, no? So, about use. So, it's more of advantages rather than disadvantages. A, C, and D, it's talking more about the usage or the advantages of using technology, whereas B is not. So, tama nga po naman. And I agree with you, it's the odd one out, or siya yung item, or siya yung choice na iba sa lahat. 194. The teacher uses GeoGebra to facilitate the lesson. Which of the following does this image show? Tingnan nyo. And I agree with that. So, Ma'am Nurse, no, tama, no? It's the only one that is stated negatively, no? It portrays a negative meaning or a negative, let's say, a negative perception, I guess, than the others. Okay, does it mean 1/2 plus 1/4, 1/2 minus 1/4, 1/2 times 1/4, or 1/2 divided by 1/4? If you could see here, this is 1/2. This is 1 out of 2, so it's 1/2. The red one is 1 out of 4, that's 1/4. And if you could see here from the image, in this box here, it's just 1 out of 8. And therefore 1/8, no? And we know that 1/2 times 1/4 is equal to 1/8. So this particular illustration exhibits multiplication of fractions. Letter C. All right. Now, I hope na nakuha po natin yung aking explanation po. Kung wala pong tanong or clarification, dumako po tayo sa item number 195. The use of metaphors in mathematics is important as it makes mathematics more relatable to students. Which of the following metaphors could relate to the term equal? Is it A, balance, B, weigh down, C, push up, or D, none of the choices? Okay. Usually, we would be using metaphors, no, if we wanted to speak, let's say, at the level of the students, or in terms or the language that they are very familiar with. If you answered balance, you are actually correct. No? Because a number sentence that represents equality exhibits balance. That is, the left side and the right side portray the same or quantity. For example,
So tama nga po yung balance, letter A. All right. So far, so good. 196. Which of the following approaches could be used to understand abstract ideas in solving linear equations in one variable? Did you go for block model approach, FAP, or the concrete abstract pictorial approach? C, direct approach, or D, teacher-centered approaches? Wow. Marami pong sumagot ng A. If you answered letter A or block model approach, you are actually correct. Right now, the block model approach is employed even in the elementary level. So in the block model approach po, no, yung sa high school level po kasi o yung nakasanayan natin is gumagamit tayo ng variables say X or Y. In block model approach, we use bars, no, or rectangles to represent quantities. Or we use pictorial models, or we use pictures, no, that represent quantities. And children or the learners would manipulate them, and it makes the idea somehow simpler compared to the abstract concepts of your algebra. So letter A po. Ay, familiar po ba tayo sa block model approach? Nakatry po pa kayong gumamit nito sa inyong pagtuturo? Let's say nung nag-practice teaching kayo. Okay, sabi ni Ma'am Luella, yes. Okay. It's very good po, no? Especially, okay, hindi pa familiar yung iba. Okay lang po yan. Kasi nga po, no, depende din po sa school natin, or sometimes depende din po sa exposure natin siguro. Sa Singaporean math, I do agree with that again, Sir Chad, no? So sinasabi nilang Singaporean math, which actually uses the CPA model then, no? Yes. Oh, unit earner. Okay, no problem po, ma'am. So it's okay po, no? So it's what we call the block model approach, or others call it simply the model approach na lang. 197. The classroom of Miss Perez does not have a stable internet connection. Fortunately, she has a good signal at home, and she downloaded a YouTube video for class presentation. Is her action sound? Is it A, no, B, yes, C, maybe, or D, always true? Okay. If you answered yes, correct po yan. That's the best thing there. Usually, no, as educators, we have to be resourceful. As educators as well, we have to make good use or advantage of technology. So if we cannot provide them online education, or if we cannot use online tools such as the internet, no, especially in our school kasi mahina yung signal, then we could actually if we have that initiative, no, to download the instructional materials beforehand because of the good signal there, then that is actually a very good thing to do, especially if we are really resourceful, if we have the presence of mind, if we wanted really to provide the best experience to our learners. So we have to, of course, in this context, it would be better if one downloads, especially if the signal is good, because you cannot download it if the signal is weak in our schools. I think that is self-explanatory. Letter B. 198. Which of the following platforms could be best used for synchronous interaction with the teacher and for online classes? Did you go for quizzes, Zoom, Microsoft Word, or GeoGebra? Okay. Many of you answered Zoom. And if you answered Zoom, that tama nga kayo. Yung quizzes, ginagamit siya sa ano? It's like for quiz, no? You could make quizzes. You could make, let's say, an assessment, no? Let's say drills, or multiple choice questions with quizzes. What we are using now is Zoom, and it's also good for interaction purposes now. In fact, you could communicate with me right now via Zoom. You could chat, you could talk as well. However, what's good in Zoom is that if you are the host, then you have control, no, of the meeting. You may, just like what I'm doing now, I am muting others and I am only the one allowed to speak because I wanted the meeting to go smoothly. But at least you could communicate with me through the chat. And it's good also, very good as well, no, for synchronous interaction with the teacher. Microsoft Word is not, because usually Microsoft Word is for you what to, let's say, make your reports, okay? And GeoGebra, it's used usually, no, for interactive. For example, it has certain features like that of a calculator, and as well as some other features that let's say that feature interactive games, then you could use GeoGebra. So the best option here is Zoom. Zoom is a communications platform that allows users to connect with video, audio, phone, and chat. Using Zoom requires an internet connection and a supported device. Okay. So quizzes, ginagamit na niyo sa Gen Ed at Prof Ed Review? Yes. Marami po, no? Tama po yun. Pwede po tayong gumamit ng Google Meet. Pwede rin po yung Microsoft Teams at marami pa pong iba. Yung iba nga messenger call, pwede rin. Jitsi, honestly, I'm not yet familiar with that. It's a good thing, no? I will try to check that later. Jitsi, it's my first time to hear that word actually. Thank you po, Ma'am Ayesa. Class point, okay, I'll explore on that too because I've heard of that, but I haven't really tried that. Okay. 199. Teacher Manny would like to give an online multiple choice assessment to his learners. The following could be used exact. Did you go for Canvas, Google Forms, quizzes, or Google Slides? Okay. I think some of you are familiar with Canvas. In Canvas, you could actually give quizzes here. What's good with Canvas is that the teacher here could post the lectures, could give timed quizzes. So Canvas is really, it's a learning management system. I agree po. Thank you po, Sir Chan. Google Forms, yes, you could also give quizzes here. You could, for example, multiple choice test. You could do it using Google Forms. Yung quizzes naman po, I think you could create here multiple choice tests. And Google Slides is usually used for making a PowerPoint presentation. It's similar to that of a PowerPoint, no? Yung Microsoft PowerPoint, similar to that. So letter D po, yung best answer dito. Google Slides. Okay, so marami yung sumagot ng D. That's a very good sign. Pasado na kayo dyan. Okay, and let's go with 200. Which of the following should be the primary consideration in the selection of available technology? Did you go for price, usability, objectives, or interpretability? According to Sir Chad, Sir Jason, Ma'am Ayesa, Ma'am Aryan, letter to Ma'am Jessa, letter C daw. To Ma'am iPad, to Ma'am Lucille, okay, yung isa naman sa inyo, usability, letter C. Okay, Orly Jimeno said C. And tandaan po natin ha, there are so many things that we have to consider. But the most important consideration is yung objective po natin. Tandaan po natin yan. Parati po tayong babalik sa objective natin. That device, for example, may be usable, but if it does not answer your objective, then useless po yan. Tandaan po natin. We could use any available technology as long as it hits the objectives po ng ating lesson. So yung pinakamalaking consideration po is objectives. Mahal man yan o hindi, o kahit gaano pa kamahal yung device na yan o yung technology na yan, kung hindi siya akma sa objective mo, useless pa rin yan. So make sure that objectives is our primary consideration in the selection of available technology. Letter C. And that concludes our review for tonight. Thank you very much and a great day to one and all.